Hi, this is a special podcast. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm honored to have TJ White on the show. TJ is a husband, a father, Army Ranger, owner, founder of Whoopie Hoodie. He's an author of his book Lead Your Adventure, a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, a real estate mogul, and he has a mind like a scientist and an arm like a rocket, and a perspective on life that is contagious. TJ, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
I've been curious. I've come across a couple articles comparing combat soldiers to mothers that have autistic children, and some of the articles state that research suggests that chronic stress experienced by some mothers of children with autism is comparable to the stress levels seen in combat soldiers. Studies have found that these mothers report experiencing low levels of cortisol, a hormone associated with stress, similar to individuals with chronic stress situations. This comparison highlights the intense challenges and daily stressors faced by many autism moms. And so we're going a little bit off course here on the episode, having TJ on, but TJ, with his experience in the military and warfare, I thought it'd be very interesting to get his mindset on some of these things, and we can draw some comparisons, or TJ can debunk them. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts when you first hear that?
I mean, it makes sense right out of the gate, I would say, because with all the stuff I've learned about this, TBI, cortisol levels, PTS, just all that stuff, like the effects on the body are tremendous, and your body doesn't know like, oh, we're going to show these signs and symptoms because it's combat stress versus these signs and symptoms because it's a different stress. And it doesn't matter what it is. It's your stress on the body, high levels of stress over a long period of time will start to show these things. And I know for a lot of the people in Iraq and Afghanistan, they have the cortisol issues, hormonal issues like low testosterone, the brain fog, the cloudiness, the fatigue, just because you're constantly operating in the red, as we say. You know, your body is always pegged. You're in the red, and after a while, it's just normal wear and tear, and
Yeah.
you have to find something to do to start recovering and start balancing that stuff back out. And especially now, I think because of Iraq and Afghanistan, there's a lot more protocols to do. A lot of people have gotten away from the VA, and kind of like what we were talking about before we hopped on live or recording, is there's a lot of holistic stuff that you can start recovering and healing with.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the families that have special needs children, it's especially on the profound autism side, the more violent, non-speaking,
Mhm.
uh, needing 24/7 care for daily life skills. The stress and toll it takes on parents is massive. Just the constant living in fight or flight.
Yeah,
Um, Seems to me that kind of this what the article suggests.
yeah.
Share a little bit about your background and your time in service.
So I grew up in South Central Kansas. Kind of kind of a punk kid, got in some trouble. I was on juvenile diversion. By the time I graduated high school, it's pretty much probation for minors. I didn't get off that until I was 19, and I knew I had to leave. I had to get out of that environment, so I joined the Army, and I went to 2nd Ranger Battalion. I was there for 7 years. I did 7 combat deployments there, 3 to Iraq and 4 to Afghanistan, and then got out and I started doing security contracting. I did that for about 10 years. There was about 30 trips, plus or minus, I don't know exactly.
Mm.
And yeah, now I'm just running the business and living here in beautiful North Idaho.
Yeah, tell us what about what? So Whoopie Hoodie is your business. Also, you dabble in some real estate. I've always admired your mindset on life, and it's contagious hanging around you. I know I mean, I was thinking back this morning. So even like 2 years ago, we were building a deck, and now where we're sitting today, it's
Yeah.
like in 2 years, a lot has changed, a lot has happened. What was your low coming home from deployment, and what kind of sparked your trajectory to get to the level you are now?
So I grew up drinking a lot. It was always around. Everybody I saw, that's what they did to decompress. And I started at a young age. I think I was in 8th grade the first time me and my friends got a case of beer, and we all got drunk together. And uh, it was just something that stuck with me. And all the way through the army, I mean, it's a huge part of the culture there. Everyone's out partying on the weekends, especially when you come home from deployment. It's like you just have all this built up energy and steam that you need to blow off, and we would just go out and hit the bars. And I did that. I mean, it got to where it was just very regular. It was a part of my personality. Is It was who I was, and I didn't go anywhere unless I was going to be drinking there. And it was just it's who I was. And I took that into contracting as well, and I was still drinking all the time. At this point, it was pretty much daily. And I hit a point to where woke up one morning and my sons were looking at me, and I was passed out on the living room floor, uh, picking myself up. They were eating breakfast. They were 1 year old at the time. They're twins, and I was looking at them, and they were looking at me, and it was just one of those come to Jesus moments where I didn't want that to be their first memory of me, and I didn't want to set that example for them and pass on everything that I had seen growing up and show them the same thing. So that was my big moment, and I decided I was going to try to get sober for 1 year, 365 days, and just focus on my business. And I started like deep diving into it to see what I was going to need to do, because I heard this a long time ago from my high school psychology teacher. Is like, if you have an addictive personality, which pretty much everybody has, it doesn't matter what it is, but everybody has an addictive personality. If you remove an addiction, you need to replace it with another addiction. And my thought process behind it was, if I remove drinking, I need to fill up that time with something that's going to be positive and productive. So I bought a bunch of books. I wrote a whole new workout. Found a bunch of podcasts that I could listen to, because I wanted to get away from the negative stuff, the news, the music I was listening to. I wanted to change everything, and that's what I did. I was 45 days into that trip, 45 days into sobriety, and I lost that job. And that was another moment. I call it like when life comes to check you, and it's like trying to see if you're serious about what you say and what you want, and it'll check you. And the bigger the change, the bigger the check you're going to have. And I was flying home trying to decide if I was going to go back to drinking or not, because when I made this promise or this vow to myself and my wife, I wasn't planning on losing my job, obviously. And I was kind of at this crossroads of, am I going to use this as an excuse, adopt a victim mentality and start feeling sorry for myself and go back to who I was, or am I going to continue to move forward with this person that I said I wanted to be? And it was a big character check, a big integrity check, and I decided that I was going to stick with it. I was going to go for the 365 days of being sober, and that was Memorial Day on Monday, 2 days ago, was 4 years, my 4 year anniversary.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
So no partying at City Beach.
no, no. What did that look like?
Oh, that's so good. I know a lot of families and parents can have that feeling of just being stuck. Kind of like life gave me this situation, and it's so easy to go in the victim mode and think that everything is happening to you and just kind of live in that. But it's a testimony to hear, and for everyone to hear, that you have the power to get out of it.
Yeah,
And it all starts in the mind.
yeah. I think
Um,
life happens. It happens for you and not to you, and it only gives you what you need. And what you do with it, your perspective on it, how you accept these lessons and move forward, or try to deny them and not accept them, then you're going to come back around and you're going to repeat it, and you're going to keep repeating it until you learn what you need to learn, and then you move forward and there's something else. But that is growth. That is how you develop as a person, develop your character, and grow while we're here.
Right, right. What was the most mentally challenging aspect of combat?
I mean, obviously you go into it with I mean, like a mindset of you can't lose. You know, you've done all the training, you've done everything that you can possibly imagine to get ready, and you go over there. But I know for me, and I'm sure for a lot of guys, it's that question still in the back of your mind every time you kid up and go out. You know, is something going to happen? Is it going to happen to me? Is it going to happen to my friends? Is it, you know, am I going to walk away from this? And you know, it's always there, and it's a reality of it. You know, everybody knows that, and you accept it obviously, or you wouldn't be there. But I mean, that's probably it. Is just that little question in the back of your mind of, you know, I've trained, I'm as ready as I can be for this, but you know, there's still that chance that something could happen.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you just got to send it. Just got to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Oh man. How would you describe the difference between acute high intensity stress versus long-term chronic stress?
I think.
I mean,
What's up?
I would imagine in combat, you're in high intensity stress at all moments. And then when you get home, you kind of live with everything you experience there in a more long-term chronic stress situation.
Yeah. So there's this thing called combat fatigue, and
Uh-huh.
even when because like sometimes we would go out and nothing would happen. It's a dry hole. You know, the guy we were looking for wasn't there, and you know that's it. You just roll out and you come back, and the mission's over. But there's still this thing called combat fatigue because you're so amped up mentally. You're looking for everything and scanning constantly and trying to identify possible threats or actual threats that even when you would go out and nothing happened, you come back and you're tired, like mentally, physically, you're still tired. And, you know, obviously, if something happens, it's going to be very, very high stress very quickly. And then, yeah, you get to come home. You get to come home. And I think this is where a lot of that, like, post traumatic stress comes from is, you know, not processing this stuff and not dealing with it and just trying to bury it and move forward without ever actually handling that situation mentally, physically, whatever it was, because your body's designed to like in the situation, it can compartmentalize it very quickly. So you don't have to think about it to get yourself out of the situation. And then
Oh,
if you don't come back and deal with it, then it just stays there and it, you know, it starts showing up as other things like the self-sabotage, the victim mindset, the I'm not good enough, the, you know, it can be sickness in the body, inflammation, injuries. You know, it's gonna show up somehow. And for a lot of us, that long term low level stress showed up as drinking.
oh, interesting. Interesting. What were some of the key? Did you have support system around you other than the reality of your kids seeing you pick yourself up off the floor? Um, how big was the support system around you and just the people you chose to surround yourself with to get you out of that low low points?
I For me, I found out what was most helpful was, which probably is not the right thing, or at least, you know, traditionally, but I kind of pulled away from everyone because I mean, all my friends and everybody that I hung out with, we hung out together and drank. So for me, it was I had to remove myself from all these situations and figure out something new. And there was a lot of unknown. There was a lot of trying to figure things out and doing it on my own and just kind of watching life happen objectively, like almost removed, and just kind of letting the pieces fall where they may, and and kind of moving forward from that, if that makes sense. It was, I had to destroy my old circle, and then as the dust was settling, certain people started coming into my life that what I was doing, where I was trying to go. The new circle just kind of built itself once I changed and started becoming that person.
Yeah. It's like the famous quote, if you want to see your future, look at your five closest friends.
Yeah,
And yeah, the power of friends, and it's everything because it's contagious.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, if you're hanging out with a bunch of downers and negative people, you're naturally just going to be negative and downer about everything.
yeah,
But if you surround yourself with people who are elevating and scaling and, you know, doing their best, it's
yeah.
just naturally going to happen.
And
Do you think PTA? Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, I know you and I have talked about this several times, but just that realizing that, man, it is a choice, and it takes time for sure, but it is a choice on how you want to live your life and how you want to show up, how you want to be recognized. And I think for so many people, that default mode is, why is everything so hard for me? And anybody can adopt that mindset, which is sad. But again, I think it's just default of, we look for problems and we magnify them, and this always happens to me. And then you see other people who, like, oh no, this is nothing, I got this, I'm moving forward, I'm going to keep going. I want to build, I want to grow, I want to be happy. Like, happiness is, it's a choice. You can wake up and
Right.
be happy, and you can wake up and choose to be mad, and it is 100% a choice.
Yeah, and I think that where a lot of the people drop the ball is getting clear exactly on
Hmm.
what you want out of life, and it related back to our listeners and families. Like I always explain to them, get super clear on the objectives and what you want with your child.
Yeah,
And when you go into meetings to plan for their future and their education, if we're not clear on what you want, it's not going to happen. And it's just like, I mean, I got trapped in it for years, just wandering around like, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to be?
yeah.
And without an objective or clear path, you're just going to flounder around. Do you think PTSD and burnout are treated differently in soldiers versus caregivers of special needs individuals?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't know much about, the caregiver world, but I mean, I can only imagine, because even for combat, you got guys that are struggling and they need help, and it's, don't raise your hand, don't say anything. And I think
Hmm.
just now kind of getting to a point to where they're starting to learn that it's okay to raise your hand and say, hey, I need some help, I'm struggling right now. And it's easier to address it early and get them back and get them ready, to keep going with the mission, than it is to just let them crash and burn. And a lot of times when they did crash and burn, it was, you're a bad soldier, you shouldn't be here, what's wrong with you, just do your job. And then you just watch dudes crash. And hindsight's 2020, and I think a lot of people see it now. And I can only imagine in the caregiver world that you have those same issues, those same feelings of just being tired and exhausted and not knowing what's next and how much longer you can keep going. And from my perspective and a lot of my friends, I would say it's much better just to raise your hand early and address the issues, so you can continue to be an asset and be a part of the team, and not just ride it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah, why do you think it's hard? I know my experience teaching with families, I mostly dealt with the moms,
Mhm.
and either dad was out of the picture or dad was not so much involved. And I know the difference, it's the parallels I've found even through a lot of the podcast guests is moms, when they find out about their kids' diagnosis, autism, Down syndrome, whatever it is, they immediately get to work. They do all the research. They figure out, what am I going to do to heal my kid? How am I going to help them? And it seems like the dad his mind goes to, this isn't what I thought the future would be with my kid. What is he going to become?
Mhm.
And so I feel like they kind of get trapped in that mindset, and then vulnerability is thrown out the window. They don't want to talk about it, which is kind of a natural deal with us.
Yeah.
um, what advice would you give to that?
Man, first of all, that's sad. I can't imagine. I don't know. I can't imagine not being around my kids ever. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what's going on. Like I cannot imagine not being around them because they're so special. And I got some friends that they have special needs kids and they're there and being a part of it. So I don't know. I think it's sad that that happens and good on mom for stepping up and doing it because it's needed. It's needed
Hmm.
more. Like it's even more important and more valuable that you're there and a part of your kid's life. And it doesn't matter what's going on. You didn't just go like you don't just have a kid of like, oh yeah, let's just try it. That's a lifetime commitment.
Right.
That is a lifetime commitment, and it doesn't matter what's going on. You're there for your kids. Period.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, what advice would you give someone under constant emotional strain?
Um, find something healthy to do. Uh, I'm a huge advocate for exercise. I get up and I exercise every single morning, and it doesn't matter if it's a walk, like a 10-minute walk, go out in the garage and do some push-ups or burpees or whatever, something because your body is designed to heal itself and manage these situations, and if you're not using it correctly, those abilities to like release the stress and also release dopamine to put you in a better mood, and you feel better, you look better, so you feel better, so you're more confident, which completes the circle and it goes right back around. And yeah, I think that's a big one. And then whatever it is, I mean, I'm in mastermind groups, people like people who are going through the same thing or building businesses or whatever, create circles for yourself that are going to help you evolve. And what's even more important, I think, is helping other people. Like you're getting the
Mm.
support you need, but being able to turn around and support other people is going to in turn make you stronger while you're navigating this. Because I know it's confusing and I know it's hard and it seems like there's a million questions, and having that support group, that mastermind group, whatever it is, and being able to be that shoulder for somebody else it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah. Let's fast forward to where you are today. So you served seven. How many years were you in the military?
7.
7. Went on 7 tours in 7 years.
Yeah.
You reside in the north, in the land of the free, and purple belt in jiu-jitsu. So going from your floor to little with your little kids,
Mhm.
so now you're sitting in your new office. You have multiple rentals, own houses, own a business, profitable business. What would you give? Like, what's the biggest mindset hack to just to help people like get out of the weeds, get out from being stuck?
Do more. whatever
Do more.
whatever you think it is that is holding you back, once you do it, you will realize how easy it was and how insignificant it was. And I would say my mindset then, like back then to now, was there was still a lot of self doubt on what I thought I was capable of. And
Mm.
I I am still learning. The more that I do and we accomplish our goals for the year, whatever it is, and then I look back on it and I'm like, that wasn't really that hard. I thought it was going to be more difficult, and I wish I would have started sooner and went bigger.
Mm. What do you think it is with like society in general and mental health. I know physical health is easier to buy into and believe because you can see it.
Yeah.
Obviously, someone has a broken leg, you can see it. Mental health, I feel like, is like the silent killer. Um, and it's easy to just go down those roads, especially when you're dealt cards you didn't think you should be dealt. Um, why is it looked down on, mental health?
I think for a very, very long time, anything wrong mentally, you were considered weak. And
Mm.
like, that's just how society's been. And on top of that, I think our society now is designed to cause mental health issues with social media, the cartoons, the flashing lights, the instant gratification that we have. It's designed to make money, and I think that's the whole point of it. And you have to recognize this and move around it appropriately, because you're not going to get away from it. I mean, maybe I guess you could. There's probably some people up here in North Idaho who have gotten away from it, but yeah, if you got a job, you got a family, you live in a town, whatever city, um, it's going to be a part of it, and you just have to recognize it and focus and prioritize on it, just like you would your health. And that's meditating, that's journaling, that's exercise, that's going for walks in the woods, setting your phone down for a day, turning the TV off and reading a book. I'm a very big believer that your mind is just like your body, and you need to exercise it, and that can be meditation or reading,
Mm.
whatever. And that's how you're gonna make your mind stronger to handle more. And I don't think it's not going backwards. So you got to have a strong mind today.
Yeah, says it in the Bible, as a man thinks, so he is.
Yeah,
And I think, our thoughts turn to beliefs, our beliefs turn to actions, our actions produce results. Everyone's so quick to want to change the result. So then we try and get into all these habits or new routines and everything, but your mindset and your thoughts around what you want to achieve still haven't changed. And that's why nobody sees any results.
yeah,
But if you first start with your mind, and it's been interesting going through this cancer journey with my wife, Reka, as you know, uh, how our cells in our bodies have direct connection to our thoughts.
hmm,
Like our thoughts can literally spin out our cells out of control. There's science words for it.
yeah,
That's what I mean. And the more you can get your thoughts and your mind under control, your body can heal itself through your mindset.
yeah.
And so now our phrase that we tell that Reka speaks over herself and I speak to her is she's healed, her body's just catching up.
Nice. That's good.
And it's just once the mindset, even with her journey, when the mindset shift, like a lot of good results are starting to happen. And when you relate it back to stress, I mean, stress, number one, you got to pinpoint it and know you're stressing because it kind of can be the silent killer. You don't even
Yeah.
know it's happening until you're 10 days down the road and you're like, oh,
Especially if
you're laying on.
you're with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um what would you say is a misconception about stress in either role? Soldier, caregiver, life, business owner, author, whatever.
Yeah. Probably that you have to live in it, that it's normal.
Uh,
I just got back from the brain clinic a few months ago. I was down there for like TBIs and stuff, and I learned a lot about stress. And I thought it was a good thing that I was able to, go out, and I'm hyper vigilant, is what we call it. You're paying attention to everything and making sure your family's safe.
yeah.
But what I was actually doing is just keeping my body in that fight or flight mode, my mind in it, and um, just learning that there's a time for it. Like it's a system in your body for a reason, but then
Uh,
you also have to be able to let it go and relax and just let your body be normal. Be grounded. Let it get back to zero. I like what you were saying about the mantra, and this is something that I tell my boys often. A few things. One, whatever you say, you're right. So when they come over and they're like, "Dad, I can't do it," and I'm like, "Well, if that's what you're going to say, then you're right. If you
That's good.
can't do it, then we'll go figure it out." Uh,
Yeah.
Before school every morning, we say, I read this in a as a sales book, but we say it in the car every morning on the way to school, is day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And it's just kind of like all encompassing your health, your mind, your abilities, like you're getting better and better every day. So yeah, I, I'm a big believer in that, and you know, choosing to have good thoughts and not the bad thoughts, because the good thoughts, it changes your energy. I believe in the vibration. Like I got songs on my phone that I listen to in the gym that are just tuned to certain frequencies, and I like listening to those, and you can feel it. You know, you feel a song that
Yeah.
gets you excited and gets you pumped up and you feel good and you have more energy, or you can play a sad song and you're tired and you don't feel good and you don't want to do anything. And recognizing these things and being able to like, okay, last time I heard this song, I had a ton of energy and I felt great. I'm going to add that to this playlist. And you start doing that and start paying attention to your thoughts too. Cause yeah, you're, like I was saying, it's like that default mode, you know, your default is just negative thinking most of the time. And when you really start thinking about it, thought auditing is how it was explained to me by one of my mentors, Mark. Uh, you start thought auditing, like, where did that thought come from? Why am I thinking that? You know, like,
Yeah.
how do I stop thinking that? What can I replace that thought with and put a good one in there instead? And it takes time, it takes practice. It's just like working out a muscle, but eventually you start getting good at it to where, you know, you're a believer that life is happening for you and not to you, and everything is good and it's exactly how it's supposed to be. And you're not doing anything wrong and you are capable of everything. And, you know, you are worthy of it. And then, yeah, then you start seeing that shift in your life.
Yeah. It's easy to live in the shame or the guilt or whatever from your past, but a phrase in my business circle is just be curious, put down shame, pick up curiosity.
That's
And I know, I mean, even as a dad, a husband, like there's things that I'm not proud of that I've said to my kids or not patient with my wife and whatnot. But instead of like living in that and being mad at myself and down on myself, it's like you said, just get curious with it. Look back on it, reflect, like, where did that come from?
yeah.
Okay. I slept for 3 hours last night. I hadn't eaten.
Hmm.
So then in the next situation you go into, those two things are already in my mind. Like I'm going to be extra on edge when I get home from work right now
Hmm.
because of these two things. So I'm consciously telling myself, patience,
Yeah.
patience.
Yeah. Go home and eat something, rest for a little bit, then we'll have a conversation.
Right, right. Tell me about your book, Lead Your Adventure. I've read it. Great book.
Thank you.
Great book.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of that is mindset. It's a lot of it your journey and how you can lead an adventurous life. What was the inspiration behind that, and how's that going?
Um, I think the inspiration came from a lot of my failures, and we live in a world that is like, you shouldn't make mistakes. You know, you're punished in school for making mistakes, and kind of like what you were just saying, drop the shame and get curious. But man, mistakes are mistakes are the best thing you can do as long as you're not making the same one over and over. But it's it came from that. And chapter one is the story I was telling earlier about, you know, what got me to stop drinking, and then everything that happened afterwards. And a few, there's a story from combat, something that happened over there. I got blown up by a suicide bomber, and it was just like the thought that popped in my head immediately. And I just kind of took all these different stories from my life, and that, I guess, shaped me and made me this person that I am today. And I wanted to put it in a book, because as I was going through all this stuff, like the getting sober and, you know, creating new income streams for my family after I lost my job, and the shakeup of the circle and friends leaving, and just trying to process everything that had happened in my life up to that point because I never did once. um, I just realized that it would be a great way to help other people, because at this point I was starting to get calls from different friends who were trying to, you know, fix some of the stuff that they had done. They wanted to get sober, they wanted better relationships, and I think they just kind of saw me. I mean, I'm not huge on social media, but I was posting about my journey. I was just kind of using my Instagram as like a journal for myself, and they were still watching it, and they're like, "Hey, how'd you do it?" And that was one of the big inspirations. And it was just trying to be vulnerable and saying a lot of the stuff
Yeah.
we talked about on here. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to raise your hand and say you need help. It's okay to um, back away from something that's not working for you, even though everybody thinks that that's you and that's who you are. Uh, I just wanted to get that out there, and it was a big pivot point for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Such a good conversation about stress, life, thoughts, mindset. I think a big takeaway for the listeners is there is hope in the journey. Everybody's on a journey.
Yeah.
It all looks different. Not everyone's is the same, but with a powerful circle around you, support system, and just getting curious with your mistakes and whatnot, uh, we literally have the ability and the power to change our circumstance. Whether it may not be physical, but in your head, in your mind, it can be changed for the better.
Yeah.
If you had a chance, we'll close it out with this. If you had a chance to speak with a mother raising a child with severe autism, severe meaning uh, non-speaking, violent. This was my circle of teaching, and there's a lot of controversy today about the spectrum of autism. Um, there's the high functioning side
Hmm.
that they have some quirks, but they live a fairly normal life, and then there's the other side of the spectrum that they will never live on their own. And RFK had a speech recently addressing this, and the autism world just went bananas.
Hmm.
And I experienced everything he talked about with families. So if you had a chance to speak with one of those families, what would you want to ask or say to her?
To the mom. To the mom.
Yeah.
How lucky are you? Like, you get to understand love on such a level that most people would never ever begin to imagine. Like, you get to, it's not unappreciated, but probably physically it looks unappreciated. You might never hear it, but you get to experience love in such a deep, deep way to take care of somebody like that most people couldn't even imagine getting close to. And
Mhm.
that's the work of an angel.
Yeah. See, when you're in the right mind space, you start to think this way
Yeah.
instead of the contrary.
Yeah.
So good. Well, where can people find you? Get some whoobies. What is a whoobie?
Whoopee is it's the military poncho liner. Uh, they issue it. It's like a blanket that they give you. It's hands down the best piece of equipment that the U.S. military has. Like, better than the tanks, the planes, ships. It's the blanket. And yeah, we took that and turned it into a jacket, and you can find it on whoobyhoodie.com. You spell whoopee with a B-Y, hoodie with a D-Y. We're on Instagram, Facebook. I'm TJ White RGR on Instagram and Facebook. Find me there.
Yeah, tune in. Make sure to give them a follow for all your mindset hacks. And when you're getting a pinch, you're always putting out good content.
Yeah, thank you.
I see it sometimes, and I'm in a pissy mood, and I'm like, okay, here we go. If TJ says it, I got to do it. Right on, bro. All right. Well, thanks for being on. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
This is the Unspecial Podcast.